Hello and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, in this session today, we are going to discuss on the topic which is mountain ecology, a spatio-temporal analysis of Western Himalayas. And for this, we have in our studios Dr. B.W. Pandey. He is Associate Professor in Department of Geography, Delhi School of Economics. So first of all, I would like to welcome our guest, and I hope Dr. Pandey would going to deliver all those ingredients, all those points he is going to include in this very lecture, with which you are going to be benefited shortly. So, sir, welcome once again to the EduSet lecture. I would like you to deliver this lecture.
Thank you very much. I'd like to discuss about mountain ecology, how the mountains are important for human being, how human beings are interacting with the mountains, how the highland and lowland interactive system are vital for coexistence of the ecology, economy, society and the environment. So I will discuss first what are the importance of the mountain ecosystem. So mountains cover almost 24% of the land on the earth, on the continents, and sustain more than 12% of the world population. Mountains are abode of the natural resources, including mineral resources, water resources, forest, medicines, herbs, and an ultimate destination for tourism development. Mountains such as alpine mountains, which are young fold mountains like Himalaya, contain largest glacier outside the polar region. Therefore, Himalayas, Hindu Kush, Karakoram region, altogether Central Asian mountains, known as third pole, because apart from the North Pole and South Pole, if there are the largest size of the glacier that is on the Himalayas mountain, thousands of the rivers channelizing, scattering in different directions, sustaining almost half of the world population in South Asia, Southwest Asia, Central Asia, East and the Southeast Asia. Therefore, central mountains of the Asia, Himalayas, Karakoram, together known as human equator, sustaining half of the world population. Mountains are ultimate source of ecotourism, forest, medicines and herbs. But today, due to globalization, due to urbanization, tourism development, there is a overpopulation at the tourist destinations, and in the infrastructure development such as construction of roads, highways, hotels and resorts, creating anthropogenic pressure over mountain ecosystem, over mountain ecology, where the natural setup of the mountains being disturbed, interferences by the mankind, resulting a number of hazards, vulnerability, disaster, which causing to the loss of life and property. So there are few slides I'd like to show through the projection, where the importance of the biodiversity, the number of herbs, flora and fauna, which are a system of ecological sustainability, which provide a balanced ecosystem over mountain. these flora fauna are being displaced due to land use, land cover change. The another slide which can show is the forest, the softwood timber, alpine mountains which are young fold mountains like Himalayas, Karakoram, Rocky, Andes, the young fold mountains which are average height is more than 4,000 meter, provide a sizable area of Devdar forest, spruce, redwood. They are all softwood, precious, high economic value timber, and also these forests are being used to conserve the biodiversity. Therefore, a large number of national parks and biosphere reserves are located on the mountains such as Himalayas, where we have Dachigam National Park, where Jim Corbett National Park, Rajaji National Park, Nanda Devi National Park, as well as Biosphere Reserve. Coming to the eastern part of the Himalaya, where the biological density is more than 7,000 per square kilometer, having a mega biodiversity with the dominance of the indigenous species. Therefore, eastern Himalayas as well as Western Ghats Malabar are considered as hotspot. A hotspot are the forest of mega biodiversity and local species. The another slide, I'd like to show what are the major issues through which mountain ecology is suffering. The issues are economic development versus ecological conservation. So, economic development in terms of ecotourism, in terms of mining, in terms of hydropower, so many economic activities, and approaching to the higher level, affecting up to the glacial ecology. So, economic versus ecology. Second is the agriculture versus deforestation. So, there is a long chain of the land use, land cover change on the mountain, and this is the sequential change. So, earlier forest land converted to agricultural land, then from agricultural land it's converted to horticultural, converted to hotels, and finally growth of the small towns, hill resorts, which is leading to the concomitant urbanization. So, there is a sequential change in the land use. Then, due to tourism based urbanization, there is a impact of globalization, and due to globalization, the loss of the local culture, loss of the ethics, loss of the local environment. So, the impact of globalization, and due to globalization, due to urbanization, there is large scale dependency from self-reliance based on agriculture, forestry, social forestry, agroforestry, different sustainable agronomic practices on the mountain. Now, youth become more and more dependent on tourism, and tourism based economy, no doubt it is lucrative, easy money, but on the cost of the loss of culture, loss of morality, loss of ethics, and the loss of the local environment. For example, I'd like to give one example, Manali. Manali, which is situated on the between Pir Panjal and Dhauladhar, you see on the screen, between Pir Panjal range, this is Pir Panjal one side, other side is Dhauladhar range, and approximately 2000 meters from the sea level. It is there inside the valley, and it was a forest land during the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. This place was known as Dana. Dana means forest, pasture land. Then, after the problems which emerged in the Kashmir Valley, the ultimate tourism development took place in Kullu Valley, concentrating around the Manali because of valley provide large space for the development of hotels. Consequently, Manali gradually became a small town. Now, more than 100,000 tourists arriving Manali every day. It has become a tourism epicenter. And earlier, there were local indigenous product, household product called pattu, which were used by the women in Kullu Valley. It is handmade, is household made. This was the tradition. It was the custom. Women used to wear pattu, but since last 40 years, gradually this system has lost, and the condition of today is even the girls which are going to schools, higher secondary schools and colleges, when they saw an old lady wearing pattu in the Manali, local girls, they try to have snap photograph. A complete loss of the culture because of impact of globalization, modernization, more and more dependency on the outsider. Then the another issue is, the last one point that I have to discuss is the development versus disaster. There are so many initiatives for development of transportation. For that, we cut the road, we construct the roads, cutting the slope, and the Himalayas are young fold mountain and which are windward side, because the southern slope is facing the southwest monsoon. There are heavy rainfall, orographic rainfall, and water are the cause of landslides. You will find that there are so many mountains in the world, including Rocky Mountain, Andes Mountain. Those are also young fold mountain, but those mountains are not as vulnerable as Himalayas, prone to the landslides, mudfall, rockfall, earth flow, mass wasting. All these issues are more prone to the Himalayas, which make Himalaya more vulnerable because heavy rainfall. So water is the cause of landslides, and drainage is the cure of landslides. So more water, more slope cutting, causing more landslides and more disaster. On the other hand, as I told you, Himalayas are the abode of more than 10% of the global mountain population. So there is more density of population, more pressure of population, and also the local population based on animal resource. So there are large number of domestic animals which are more and more dependent on the grazing. All these issues I'd like to discuss through the slide that can give a better understanding with the beginning. So, the canopy of the forest on the western Himalaya, where you can find there is a dense crown forest. On the slide you can see dense forest cover, more than 40% of the canopy covered with the forest, the Kamanali area. And then you find the certain questions which I'd like to mention, that land use, land cover changes depends on geology, slope and climate of a region. And then you can compare this question. So, land use, land cover changes depend on geology, slope and climate of the region. So, this makes Himalaya more vulnerable to hazard as compared to other mountains, because land use, land cover change in Himalaya is rapid. More and more slope, steep slope and slope cutting makes slope failure, and more anthropogenic activities creating microclimate change. Then question number 2 is deforestation and slope cutting for constructions are the major cause for geo-environmental hazards. More roads, more tourism, and it's not only leisure tourism on the Himalayas. As you know, Himalayas are the largest religious tourism in the world. Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Nanda Devi, there are so many religious places which are the ultimate religion destination. So, religion tourism, ecotourism and leisure tourism, they are all supporting, they need support infrastructure, more construction of roads on the high level. At this stage, I'd like to mention certain geographical importance to discuss these questions. So, number 1, as you move to the upper reaches of the Himalaya, slope increases. Slope, degree of angle of the slope is indicator of marginality. As marginality increases, livelihood decreases, decrease in the resource, decrease in the base. In other words, I'd like to mention what is marginality. Marginality means limitation, limits, limitation of the resources, limitation of the land. Say for example, if you construct a road in the Ganga plain, you can construct 6 lane, 8 lanes road because the surface is plain. So, there is no marginality. But when you come to the Himalaya, we construct road on the slope where land is limited. So, margin means border, marginality. When you come to the end, that is called marginal area. So, mountain slope enhances the marginality. So, due to marginality, there is limitation of the land use, the limitation of the resources. This is the reason on any mountain region in the world, why do mountains are severely affected by out-migration, migration of resources, migration of water, migration of soil, migration of population. Every year, the heavy rainfall on the Himalayas that create large scale soil erosion. So, soil of the mountain drain out by the water get deposited in the lower plain. What we say Khadar land, Bangar land, all the alluvials, all the tertiary alluvial deposits in the lower Ganga plain, middle Ganga plain, upper Ganga plain, delta region, all comes from the Himalaya, which form the plain, fertile agricultural land. So, fertile agricultural land in the plain areas in UP, Bihar and Bengal, but the soil comes from Nepal, from Uttarakhand, from Himachal Pradesh. The soil, water, each and every drop of water drain out through the slope, through the percolation, through the drainage, it come out in the plain. Even due to ablation, melting of glacier known as ablation. Due to ablation, melting glacier, each and every drop of water come to the plain. So, mountain movement due to marginality, moving out the resources, soil, water, and then man force. Mountain region are largely affected by out-migration. One example I would like to add, the total number of people from Uttarakhand living in Delhi alone, their population is more than the total population of Uttarakhand because of out-migration. And this is the reason there are so many says in the mountain culture that soil and sun of mountain, they never serve the mountain. The soil, water and sun. When sun become young, move out from mountain to the plain, joined Indian Army, joined different services. Marginality. So, marginality is the main reason for moving out resources from mountain to the plain area. Because of marginality, number 2, there are vulnerability. Increasing vulnerable mountain system. Here, I would like to mention there are vulnerability more applied to the young fold mountains. Young fold mountains are more vulnerable. Young fold mountains called alpine mountains. There are 4 different ages of the mountain. Very old mountains called Precambrian mountains, which are formed very early. They are no more on the earth, they are eroded away. Then Caledonian mountains, which are very low height, are converted as a plateau. Then third is called Hercynian mountains, which are old mountains like Aravalli, Vindhyan, peninsular mountains. They are Hercynian mountains. And then the last one, the youngest, the new mountains called alpine mountains. These alpine mountains are weak in geology. Therefore, they are more fragile. And fragility and vulnerability also affected by marginality of the mountain. Fragility and vulnerability, I would like to explain. Suppose you cut a tree in the plain area, there is no such big damage because a new tree can be grown up, because it's a plain, it has more carrying capacity. But if you cut a tree on the slope of the mountain, then the soil, the geology becomes weak, and the roots of the tree which are penetrated along the slope become porous, and due to gravity of the slope, it slumps down and creates landslide. So, cutting a tree on the plain is not causing any geological hazards, but if you cut a tree on the slope, on the mountain, we are definitely going to have a slump, going to have a landslide, causing geological hazards. That fragility, and fragility leads to vulnerability. Vulnerability means need extra care for conservation. more educated society, responsible society, to take care about the nature, to take care about the slope, and to reduce the vulnerability, to reduce the fragility, because fragility and vulnerability are the pre-occurrence of hazards, degree of risk. As marginality increases, as fragility increases, as vulnerability increases, it gives rise to the risk. Risk, degree of risk means kind of hazard. Hazard is a risk, degree of risk. So, if slopes of the mountain are more degraded, more cut down, it means there is increasing, posing the risk, different kinds of landslide, different kinds of hazards. So, risk, hazards, finally, if it is not monitored, not forecast, not the mitigation is not taken place, then definitely it causes disaster. These issues, first of all, I would like to show through the case study, which I would like to show on the screen through the projection. You can see the driving forces on this, on the projection, see driving forces, which are the responsible factors for ecological degradation on the mountain, that is forest clearing, timber extraction, slope cutting for road development, then tourism, urbanization and globalization, shifting of cultivation on steep slope. This is very important. Due to climate change, due to global warming, there is shift of the cultivation from lower slope to the higher slope. In 1945, which I have conducted the field work survey, I found in 1945 there were good quality of apple were grown at Mandi district in Himachal Pradesh at the height of 1200 meter in 1945. And today, if you see, the same quality of apple are grown at the height of 2400 meter, 2000 to 2400 meter high elevation. So, there is shift of the 1000 meter altitude in agriculture. So, those altitude which were used for apple production in 1945, that altitude being used for production of rice, production of wheat, production of barley, and apple shifted to 1000 meter upward. So, shifting of cultivation on steep slope, development of horticulture on the steep slope, and due to horticulture there are excessive uses of pesticides and insecticides. Friends, pesticides, insecticides, these extra uses not only having the pollution of fruits, vegetables, but also deteriorating, degrading the quality of water of a spring, quality of water of the river, and supported by tourism development, urbanization. So, there are lot of pressure of the traffic, which I would like to see on the screen. This is the horticulture product. Now, it is the big commercial used. This is herbs. It's around the beyond the tree line at the height about 3000 meter on the western Himalaya. This is the apple orchard in Kullu Valley. This is a special flower called Brahmakamal, which is a typical flower of in the western Himalaya. This is the state flower of Uttarakhand, and it is very, very sacred. And see the culture. Mountains are very rich culture, culturally very sound. I was talking about pattu. So this is a pattu, a kind of dress. It's hand woven by women, local women, and they used to wear, which is now is completely vanished, replaced by the modernization. So that the development of hotels, tourism development in the Manali area especially. Now I would like to see this figure. If we'll see this is a Manali town. It was a forest land, and now due to development of tourism, hotel construction, it looks like a Chandni Chowk of Delhi. It doesn't look like a city at the height of 2000 meters. So tourism based urbanization creating extra anthropogenic pressure over the mountain ecology, over the mountain ecosystem, which is being more vulnerable. I'd like to see on the screen further. So the tourism development is the root cause behind the land use land cover change in Kullu Valley. See the deforestation. Once this is the area called Gulaba area, and this Gulaba forest was dense Deodar forest. Now it is totally deforested. You can see only the trunk of the trees. And the another part of the picture you can see the development of hotels. All the timbers were used, the construction of hotels, and due to loss of grazing land, due to loss of the forest land, there is reduction in livelihood, a great stress on the livelihood, on the sustainability. This is a picture we can see. This is the inter-valley migration in search of grazing land to sustain the domestic population, and this picture shows how the transhumance take place. Every winter, millions of the sheep and goats, every winter they move downward, down valley, and every summer it moves upward, because upward in summer season due to melting the glacier. This is the glacier, this is the snow covered area in summer season, and this snow covered area, when it melts down in summer season, it provides grazing land, which is called meadows. These meadows are a base for large scale economy. You know, Himalayas are the major supplier of the goats and sheep, supply of the meat in the metropolitan areas, mega city areas. And see, millions and millions of the sheep and goats across the Himalaya, they supply to the Delhi, Mumbai, Kanpur, big cities, because this grazing area provide a source of livelihood, source of economy. The animals of the high mountain are food for the lowland people. And then supporting tourism development, and again I would like to mention ecotourism. People move to the mountain to see the glacier, to see the forest, to see the waterfall, to have a cool air, healthy, rich oxygen air for benefit of the health. But unfortunately, the people must have the sense of responsibility. Most of the tourist places being polluted, and due to overpopulation, due to over tourism development, there is a lack of sense of responsibility, where I would like to show the sense of responsibility in this picture, where I do suggest my students, when you go to the mountain, irrespective of who had created the pollution, try to remove the pollution and give the example. Give the example so that people should learn. You have to become a teacher to teach the people how to save the environment, how to save the ecology of the mountain. Few pictures I'd like to show you, the pressure of tourism development. The Western Himalaya, look at the picture. This is the geological composition which shows that most of the valley side weak rocks, and with the distance from the valley, there are a number of landslides prone area have been identified, and this is a kind of model I would like to show you how the development affecting the mountain area. So there are construction of roads. Roads are constructed parallel to the river, and due to slope cutting, the slope become vulnerable. The upward gully formation makes the slope more hazardous, and you can see the pressure of tourism on the screen. The number of vehicles which got struck due to marginality. There was a landslide, so road was blocked, and you can see on the screen, can you count what are the total number of vehicles on the screen? And this traffic jam, you will be surprised to know the next photograph where it was. Can you count? Can you see all along the slope? This is all the vehicles are standing deadlocked due to landslides. And here there is no other road where the people can approach. It is not possible to develop a new road at this point on this slope. This is the real meaning of marginality. This is the marginal reason where the development of resources, development of infrastructure is not easily possible. Then another photograph on the screen, you can see this is a slope which is a vulnerable slope. A vulnerable slope on the screen, you can point this slope where see the geology, and this is, I'd like to mention, this is National Highway number 21, and see the depth of the rail which is formed, and these rail are posing hazard on the road. And imagine this National Highway 21, there is a truck passing on this road. Imagine what would be the consequences if there is a bus, and the bus having more than 60 passengers, and see the size of the bus and size of the boulder is almost equal. If the one slope slips down, then see what happens. It had happened in Manali, near Manali, that 60 people buried alive near Kullu due to the fragile slope. Due to the slope, due to fragility, it needs monitoring, forecasting, and planning. So this map shows this land use is divided in 3 parts. This is the Upper Beas Basin. One model I would like to mention where the kind of land use restriction must be applied. I have prepared this map on the basis of degree of risk, intensity of risk, intensity of hazard, magnitude of the hazard from the valley side. So high risk, medium risk, and the low risk. This is based on a number of parameters, including the number of population, degree of angle of the slope, the nature of the slope failures, valleys, resources, and all that accumulated parameters, this map was prepared. Similarly, this kind of planning is must to all the mountain region of the world, where the degradation, anthropogenic activities are posing risk to the mountain ecosystem, to the mountain ecology. The world mountains losing the common resources, common property resources, because of loss of the common resources, common property resources, there is change in the nature of human occupation. This is the reason that in the last Earth Summit that took place in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, which is also called Rio Declaration, under the UNEP, United Nations Environment Programme, the Rio Declaration, which has declared Agenda 21, Agenda for 21st Century, in which it has been mentioned that Chapter 6 of Agenda 21 describes mountain ecosystem as a fragile ecosystem, vulnerable ecosystem, marginal ecosystem, which need extra care to care the resources, to reduce their hazard, to sustain the livelihood, and all these require initiatives under which the Convention on the Conservation of Biological Diversity, International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction, Highland-Lowland Interactive System Management, Man and Biosphere Program, UNESCO, UNEP, World Wide Fund. There are so many initiatives at the international level to save the mountain ecology, to save the mountain in the environment. In this reference, I would like to mention the Mountain Research Initiative called MRI, Mountain Research Initiative, which is having headquartered at University of Bern, Switzerland, where Professor Greenwood, the chairman, who is getting a lot of awareness at the global level. There was last July, there was a World Mountain Fair in the University of Nevada, Reno, in the United States of America, where all the scientists from different parts of the world were discussed the different initiative to sustain the mountain ecosystem, to sustain the mountain ecology. For that, there are so many centers have been developed, like International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, EC-MODE, established in Kathmandu, Nepal, and providing a number of government initiative, government institutions. I'd like to mention G.B. Pant Institute of the Himalayan Studies, Wadia Himalayan Geological Studies. There are so many centers which are working to conserve the local ecosystem, global ecosystem of the mountain, to provide livelihood sustainability. And there are large scale watershed management and social forestry, agroforestry are the key behind the sustainable management of the resources to provide local livelihood, to provide the sustainability at the local level. Few names I would like to mention on the Himalayan case studies. I had visited Gopeshwar in the Chamoli district, where I found Mr. Jagat Singh Jangali, who had developed a concept of the agroforestry, and he said forest agro means agricultural product from the forestry. He became model of eco-village model, sustainable village model. The another Dudha Toli region in Uttarakhand, where Mr. Satyanand Bharti, who had developed another sustainable scheme over the mountain region, an example of the sustainability over mountain region. So these kind of initiatives, which is no doubt is local but having global impact. Mountains are more affected due to global warming because of its altitude, because of its marginality. So mountain ecosystem provide a base for resource development, for environmental development, conservation, from local tourism, tradition, trade, to the global environment. It provides a large forest areas of the mountain are a major source of biological source of carbon sink. This is very important in the era of globalization, in the era of global warming, in the era of the greenhouse gases, where the global issues are being raised due to global warming, due to greenhouse gases, rise of temperature, melting the glacier. Such global issues are also controlled by mountain forest, because mountain forest provide a biological source to the carbon sink, reducing the greenhouse gases. So right from economy to the ecology, tourism, sustainable development, water resources, highland, lowland, interactive system, mountains are vital. Mountains are very, very important to save the ecology of the earth. Mountains are also a system of eco-balance, ecological balance, and mountains are having unique social needs which is not found generally in the plain areas. A social needs due to inaccessibility, limited connection. Therefore, mountainous people who are able to protect their culture, tradition, morals, ethics, food, cloth, right from generation to generation. I'd like to quote one example in Himachal Pradesh, a village called Malana. It generally comes on television and the radio, news about the Malana. Right in the 21st century, where the entire world, entire India passing through the time of globalization, Malana is still a native, local, traditional village, and that attract large scale tourism to see the people, to see their culture. So traditional knowledge and an asset for the local people which is found on the mountain. And talking about all these issues, at the end I'd like to mention that enhanced land use capability analysis may reduce the vulnerability in the mountainous areas, in the valley region. Improved understanding of development policies conducive to the promotion of economic activities, environmental sustainability and livelihood security. Hazard mitigation plans should be emphasized at the community level, and with the community participation, there should be more awareness to reduce the impact of hazard in the mountain region. And now the remote sensing data and GIS techniques now has become tool to reduce the vulnerability risk of hazards in the mountain region. And covering all these topics about the mountain issues, mountain features, local issues, global issues, and the remedies. I would like to thank you, and if you have any question regarding this, it's my pleasure to reply you, to answer you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You raised very important points while describing everything about the mountains, right from people to all the hazards which happens in the mountain region. But as a human being, if we belong and if we do not belong to the mountain region, what should a particular individual should do on their part?
Yeah, those people who are not mountainous people living in the plain. See, plain areas, resources of the plain are gift from the mountain. Okay, so whenever there is a tourism development, so tourism development are the movement of people from plain to the mountain. So when you go to the mountain as a tourist, as a religious person, as a tourist person, one thing you must keep in mind that mountains are fragile. They need extra care. So be a responsible citizen, be a social capital to take the responsibility to not provide pollution, to not have any kind of negative impact on the nature of the mountain, say pollution. I have seen the people crossing the valleys, so many places in Uttarakhand, in Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, in Rohtang Pass area. I found there is like it become a dome of the pollution, polythene, the canes and the raffles, all which are dumped as a zone of pollution. Who are doing? They're all people coming from the plain. You are carrying all the goods from plain to the mountain. You are not tired. Once you have consumed, you have thrown away at the same place. Try to put in the dustbin. So respect the culture of the local people, respect their food, respect their cloth. So give them respect, and most important thing that to take care about the nature. So those people who are in the plain going to the mountain must promote green tourism, must promote sustainable tourism. Green tourism, sustainable tourism are the message to the people in the plain areas.
Definitely, sir. You raised a very important point over here. If a common man can do one thing is to protect the environment, especially of the hilly regions.
Yes.
As we have seen that during the tragedy which took place in Uttarakhand recently,
yes.
Many of the voluntary organizations who are working for the environment, they came there because what happened there, all the people who were waiting for their people who are coming from the Himalayas, from the this Kedarnath region, they were drinking, they were eating, and they were throwing all the garbage on the roads. So, but these organizations, these voluntary groups or the young people, they came forward, they collected garbage and made the city clean.
Yes. We had a project with my teacher, Professor R.B. Singh, in the Department of Geography. We had a project with the Government of Canada, CEDA funded project on the mountain. So we had posted certain dustbins in the Manali areas, in the Rohtang Pass, and we had started the campaigning to educate the people. And mostly from people from Delhi, Chandigarh, Mumbai, Kolkata, they are coming all the way. And when they throw out, we pick up that material with the garbage and put in the dustbin so that they can see, so that they feel ashamed, and they must learn to not to pollute this area. So there are so many NGOs, there are so many institutions, even in the mountainous areas, to educate the people to take care about the nature. Because if we respect the nature, nature protects us. Therefore, it's my message to the people in the plain areas, those coming on the mountain, to become a responsible citizen, a responsible man.
Definitely, sir. You said very rightly that if we can't protect our environment, we have no right to disturb the environment.
Yes.
If we say that we are urban, so why our activities are rural? Word urban and rural have a very small difference. It is the activities. Sir, what do you feel? Do media should play actively to highlight the issues of the common man, right from the common man to the problems or the cultural aspects of the hilly regions?
Yes, definitely. The media is already playing good role, but I would like to request that there are so many issues which are needed to be highlighted to the masses, to the public, not only when there's some disaster or some kind of extreme events. Even in general circumstances, media must show the kind of do's and don'ts at the school level, at the college level, at the masses. Through media, through education, we can give message to the student that whatever things are going over the mountain, we can protect the mountain. So media is very, very important to highlight the sense of responsibility.
The sense of responsibility, yes. And you too have given a message to all the students who might be watching us this time right now, that how to protect the environment and how to protect the hilly regions to be called as a beautiful country. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for being with us and delivering such a nice lecture.
Thank you. So.